the first question I asked Ashlyn when I came in here was, how does the circle look different and the approach change without Alex Brake? I'm sure that's the first question you anticipated out of me when we scheduled this interview is, what is this team going to look like without Alex Brake? How do you retool this team's identity to adjust for such a huge loss?
Oh, there's never replacing a caliber of an athlete or a player such as Alex. I think that we have more depth than we have had. Obviously, Ashlyn ate up quite a few innings last year, was not as consistent as I believe that herself and I liked out of her. Towards the end of the year, she would have a really good outing, and then she'd come out and not be as efficient as she once was. So, later in the season, she didn't get as many innings as she probably would have liked. This fall, she did a tremendous job. With Kelsey Phillips, the freshman, coming in, she gives us a little bit change as far as different type of pitcher than Ashlyn. She's got a little bit more velocity. Ashlyn has a tremendous changeup, and I feel like she's going to give us the experience side of it. Kelsey's going to give us, the teams that are going to struggle getting around on a fastball or velocity pitches. Just the change in the type of pitching is going to give us a little bit more depth there. Obviously, without Alex Brake in the circle, offensively, we gotta be able to produce more runs, and so that's kind of our more of our mentality this year versus obviously in the past. You got to score runs.
You could small ball your way to win a victory the last 2 years.
Right. I mean, if you score 2 or 3 runs, you give yourself a chance with Alex. And not to say that our pitching staff won't be able to do that, but I don't feel like we're going to have as consistent holding down teams as Alex did. We're not going to strike out 13 on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, we have to be able to field the ball. With Alex, in theory, you had to field about 6 or 7 balls in a game. She strikes out anywhere from 10 to 13 hitters a game. If we play a 7-inning ball game, you're looking at anywhere from 8 to 9 balls that you have to field efficiently to get out of a game flawless. So defensively we got to be better, which I feel that we will be.
I felt like that was a bit of a concern even last year. I mean, it didn't expose itself as much because, just like you said, Alex can go out there and mow down 15. But and you had a few spots short up. I think you shored up catcher with Kendall, and Sam was tremendous in center. But I thought aggregately fielding was not a bright spot for you guys last year.
Yeah, and it kind of showed itself early or late. Obviously at the national tournament, right after we played a great game against LSUE, go 9 innings, and they give us a 10-minute break to get anything to eat on a 90-some degree day. Didn't have any time to recover, didn't have much time mentally to recover, and we blow up defensively in the first 3 innings, and that killed us. We had 3 big errors that created 6 runs, and that showed itself immediately there. So, that's just the thing that we have to eliminate this year. We can't give up multiple mistakes in an inning. Mistakes are going to happen. The game's built that way. With the lack of maturity, the lack of experience is a better term, with this year's team, we have to anticipate mistakes, but then again, we have to be able to be mentally tough enough to overcome those immediately and diminish as many mistakes as a positive for us. If we give up a home run, we've got to come back immediately and get the next out. If we give up an error, we got to make sure that kid don't advance or don't score. So, those are just little intricacies that we really have to harp on this year, because I don't feel like we're going to give ourselves as good of an opportunity with Alex in the circle as we had the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. You touch on this a bit. Got to be able to score more. Got to be able to hit better. Your fielding wasn't great last year. I really didn't feel like your hitting was that great last year. I thought the best thing about that team last year was they just had an unbelievable penchant for the moment. They knew when to hit, but they didn't do it consistently, and their averages were way down. I think they compared to a 2018 that didn't have a winning season.
Right.
But you just had Alex. I don't mean to harp on the same point, but not only has fielding, I'm sure, been a point of emphasis for you in the fall and in this spring camp, I'm sure hitting has been as well. How not only the fact that you lose such a big sophomore class, but this lineup is blown up from last year to this year, and I'm sure you're expecting an explosion of offense. How have you gone about trying to find that?
We went out, Kay went out and did a great job of recruiting. We got good athletes. We have a good mix. We don't have a Katie Taylor. We don't have a kid, I feel like, that's going to come in and steal 90 bases. Again, one of those rarity type of players that you don't get very frequently. But we have a couple kids above average speed that's going to help us on the bases to be able to put pressure on defenses. We have a couple kids with some pop. Again, we don't typically have a team that's going to be a team that's going to drive a ball out of the yard consistently.
I think you like that small ball approach to an extent too. I just think.
I think I would rather have a team of 275, 300 hitters than one or two kids hitting 400 and the rest of the team's hitting 245, 250. That with a kid that's hitting 30, 40 home runs in a season. I consistently would rather have a team that's just an average team because you never can count on that one or two or three kids coming up in that key situation. If we hit over 300 as a team, I think we'll be pretty good. But we have to be able to produce, the short game stuff. We have to be able to move runners. We have to be able to execute bunt and runs, execute our squeeze plays, and that, I think, you look back at the last 2 years, offensively, we haven't had that big explosion. But as you said, we came up and did what we needed to do when it was needed. And that's what this group has to be able to do, and do it consistently. We can't just hope and get ourselves into a situation and only do it when it's needed. We have to be able to do it day in and day out, and every inning. That's kind of the game plan. You win every inning, or you at least give yourself an opportunity to win every inning. You're going to give ourselves an opportunity to win every ball game. So,
looking at personnel a bit, I don't want to go around the horn and talk about every position, but I do want to mention a few people. Sierra, you're only returning all-conference player. It's her, then a team of newbies essentially. Kendall, I would count. I guess you could count her as an everyday starter because she held and maintained that spot, through the last third of the year. But looking specifically at Sierra first, she said she's going to stay at second. Do you feel like that's what's best for her, and how do you look to her as a leader of, certainly the offensive and fielding side of the ball?
Second base, in my opinion, is the toughest position to play on the field. Obviously you don't get as many ground balls as you do as a shortstop. But mentally, you have a lot more execution. You have a lot more to do as far as executing our scheme on defenses. You've got to be able to cover a bunt. You've got to be able to cover fake bunt. You've got to be able to cover your first and third situations. There's a lot more
a lot of cutoff schemes too, I'm sure.
Mental approach and understanding of everything on the second base side of the field. I feel like she does a tremendous job of being prepared, understanding her position, and she does a great job of leading. Obviously, being in the middle of the field helps out as well. Offensively, she struggled early, and then I think she came on late and did very well. So if we continue or can continue on from that, I think that she could potentially be a big offensive threat for us. for Kendall, obviously being behind the dish, I don't intend on her being back there every single game, just for defensive purposes late in the season. You can't have a kid catching 60 games and expect offensively for them to be productive. Eventually your legs wear out and offensive numbers are going to decrease. So,
do you think that's why maybe even Katie Taylor had a bit, or not Katie Taylor, Katie Jo Armstrong had a bit of a surge late in the year because she got off her knees, and so she was able to pinch hit a lot. Yeah, I mean, was that a coming to Jesus moment you had? And so you said, okay, let me get my catchers more rest throughout the year.
I think it could have been could have been that she just finally figured out all the whole grand scheme of things, or she just finally hit that hot spot. No telling. But I have definitely seen in years past, whenever we have two catchers that can split time, offensive numbers stay consistent. Whereas as the year progresses, offensive numbers tend to decline if we only have one consistent catcher.
Who do you intend to platoon along with Kendall?
Oh, we've got Jordan Graham, which is out right now with an injury. But Megan Porter's came on the last month and a half, right after Thanksgiving, and really worked her tail off. I don't know defensively if she's going to be able to hold us down or hold teams down from running as much as I would like. But offensively, she's really shown signs of being able to come in and do her job. She's a knowledgeable player. She comes from a good program, so she understands the game very well. So we've got three good kids that really it's going to come down to offensive numbers and who's going to produce, because I really trust all three of those girls to be able to produce defensively day in and day out.
All three? Kendall,
Jordan.
Okay. What about Emily Harrell?
She's an outfield.
She's in the outfield now.
She and Cass Smith, she's moved to a corner, and Emily's going to be in the outfield. So.
Okay. Another outfielder I wanted to talk about who is out with illness today apparently is Corey. She comes in with, we talked about this when I did a feature on her in the fall when she was doing well with volleyball, is how theoretically she would make the adjustment. Well, how has that worked in practice, moving from volleyball to softball? How has she made up for the lost time in the fall, and how has she acclimated herself to your team?
I think personality-wise, she's acclimated herself to the team pretty easily. She's one of those type of players that she puts the work in, and her personality just meshes with pretty much anybody. So as far as getting along and being a part of our team chemistry, she's done a tremendous job. As far as coming in after volleyball season and getting work done, we had about 2 weeks after volleyball of being able to have team practice. So she didn't get much work in as far as team stuff after volleyball. So we've only really had Corey for about 2.5, 3 weeks. As far as actually being able to work with her on a consistent basis. She's an athlete. She's going to be able to come in. She's going to be able to give us that little bit of extra speed in the offensive lineup. Outfield-wise, it's not, as far as a position, it's not a difficult position that you can't come back and understand what we're doing. It's not a middle infield position or a catching position where you have to know a lot of different schemes or different things that we're doing. Outfield is a lot different. In position wise, it's just more technique and understanding what we want than anything. So it's not as if it's a difficult position for her to be able to come in and be able to fill in or fit in immediately.
What role do you envision her being in that lineup opening day, or is she still getting acclimated? I mean, it seems like, from what I saw in volleyball, it seems like her athleticism is a hard miss.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, she's going to give herself every opportunity. Right now, it's kind of hard to say. We've got a couple girls that are going to be competing for in the outfield consistently. We've got four really good outfielders that are going to be competing with one another One girl that's going to be possibly looking to eat some innings in the circle, possibly looking to move her back to the infield. She's a utility girl that can play. We recruited her as a corner and an outfielder, and she's thrown a little bit in high school, so she may even eat up some innings here and there. Megan Taylor.
Megan Taylor.
So, I mean, there's 5 really good outfielders to compete for 3 positions. So, it comes down to offensive numbers. You produce on the offensive side, you're going to be on the field.
Yeah. Another girl I wanted to talk about real quick, another pitcher that just is, she kind of fell into the 4 spot on a staff that had break last year, is Ellen Cupp, a sophomore returning pitcher who had a decent outing against Allen to end the regular season. Does she have a role in this team? Because it seems like even as a returning sophomore, she's still in that 3 hole behind Ashlyn and Kelsey.
Oh, I think that, she's going to have an opportunity to throw. I mean, she's battled injuries all fall. She's battled sickness and ailments throughout the fall and now into the spring. So, if we can keep her healthy, she had a pretty decent fall. She comes out and throws well against some big offenses that we play in the fall. So, all 3 of our pitchers that threw this fall consistently did a tremendous job. It's not, again, that's where we have depth. I feel like that we could run any of them out there consistently. If they're producing, they're going to beat pretty well anybody that we play in our conference. So, it's just going to be them coming out and making sure that we have that consistent production day to day, and any of them can go out there. So that depth will help us out. Again, in the long term, come postseason, having fresh arms and not having to just rely on the one kid or the 2 pitchers every single game. I think that'll allow us to make sure that we're fresh going into the postseason with all of our arms.
Mm-hmm. If you had to pick one sophomore who we haven't talked about so far, so basically not Sarah or Kendall or Ashlyn or Ellen, who you expect to take a big leap this year, who you've seen in the fall and in the spring, maybe take that major step forward after riding the pine a lot last fall or last spring. Who is it?
Callie Porter's really stepped up. I think that she's put some work in. She's matured tremendously. She's come in, anytime you ask a kid to come in and help, whether it's softball related or not, Callie's one of them that's always here. Not that translates always to softball, but just that mentality and her approach is really matured, and that's really impressed me a lot. On top of the fact of her production, she's done a really good job of now knowing how to slap, not just slapping. She understands how to do it, and that, again, is a test to her and Coach K's ability to work and put the time in to understand what's going on. Defensively, she may be
where are you going to put her?
She may be starting at shortstop. We're up in the air at short and third base right now. Those are our 2 question marks because we've got to be able to find somebody that can fill the bunt at third as well as stick their nose in a ball and make sure that we're able to just play the position. We struggled with it all fall. Laura Panada is that athlete that's good enough that I think we can move her there and she can do a good job in that position. Callie played a little bit of third base last year here and there. So, it's up in the air in those 2 fashions as well. Heck, second base is even up in the air depending on who's producing there. Again, it's going to be offensive numbers, who's putting numbers up on the offensive side. Defensively, I feel like we have kids that are going to be able to play and make plays on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. What about any freshmen, maybe besides Cor, who and Lauren, who you've mentioned, who has really stood out so far?
Skylar's come back after break. Skylar Sadler's came back after break, put herself at the top of the lineup as far as, in my eyes, as far as work.
Well, what position is she at?
She's a first baseman that came in, struggled a little bit in the offensive side of it, really worked hard in the fall, and offensively she's hit some balls after break that I'm excited to see what she's going to do offensively. She's a good athletic-bodied kid that can move decently on the bases. Plus, she has a little bit of pop. And like I said, she came back in shape, and she's putting herself in the opportunities of making sure that she's going to be on the field. So I think she's got a great opportunity to be something special.
Yeah. We talked about how this team's going to look different, what you're going to do differently. You're coming off 2 program highs with going 5th down in Mississippi 2 years in a row. And now you've got a lot of new faces that were not the definition of that program when they went and did that. I asked Harrell what the expectation is, and she expects a national championship. I'm not saying this team's not capable of that, but either way, you guys finished 5th at nationals last year, but you're a bases loaded, full count bunt going foul away in Topeka from maybe that not happening. How do you approach this year? What are your expectations for this year with such a new group, with a new identity?
This question's been asked I don't know how many times.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure this is the question you get.
Go back 2 years ago. Go back 2 years ago. Same scenario. Whole new team, whole new group of players on the field. It's part of the game. We've been doing it. I've been doing it for now going on my 14th spring, 13th full year here.
You know what you're doing.
You just have to make sure that they're ready, they're prepared, and obviously experience helps a ton when it comes time to get on the field and play. We have the experience of being able to have players know what to expect. We have players that know what we expect as a coaching staff. We don't have a lot of experience in those situations and actually producing, but we have players that know what they're doing. And at the same time, again, these girls have played the game forever. It's no different. All we have to do is be able to compete and give ourselves an opportunity to go out, play with a lot of heart, and make sure that we put it out there on a day-to-day basis. So it's not as if it's something new for us. Yeah, it's tough to look back and say, man, these last 2 years have been great. But they're the same. It's the same thing 2 years ago. The team before them was okay, but then they came in and made it great 2 years in a row. Who's to say that this next group isn't going to do the same thing for the next 2 years, and then the next group? So, we were in this same boat 2 years ago. Obviously, we had, at the time, not knowing, a player that led the country in stolen bases, broke a record there, and then a 2-time pitcher of the year. So, obviously, you never know what you're going to have on the field until you get out there and play.
Yeah. I think one of the early tests, not only of this group, no doubt one of the early tests, but it's one that this group gets to undergo because of the legacy that this past class left behind, is that leadoff classic down in Georgia, where there's going to be a lot of elite JUCOs down there. You got the invite because of what this team has done over the last 2 years. First off, what does it mean to just get that invite? And secondly, how do you feel like this team will manage that?
I think it's a great honor. Obviously, the best teams in the country get the opportunity to go down there. Getting to go down there and compete against those teams early, will be a big test to see what we need to do, what we need to improve on, what we're expected to do, and how we're going to come out and compete against those types of teams. Are we going to be that team, or are we going to be a team that's going to just go out there and play? Are we going to be one of those elite teams? Obviously the past couple of years, this will be our second trip down there to be able to play in this tournament. So, it's a great opportunity for these girls to get seen as well as compete against some of the best teams in the country. So, I'm excited to get to go down there. We see LSUE at the tournament, and then we travel to Eunice and play them a doubleheader on that following Tuesday. They're preseason number one, deservingly so. They're looking for their fifth national title in 7 years. They're a pretty elite program with a tremendous coaching staff. So we'll get to see them 3 times and see what we're made of. So it'll be a great experience for our team, our players, and we just got to make sure that we don't just go down there and make it an experience. We actually come out of it with something purposeful.